How's it going? Welcome to the Read Aloud for day 10. Here we go. Let's see where we were. Oh, I think we just looked at a picture, didn't we? Oh yeah, it's the mountains fighting with each other. I always liked that picture. Let's see, they could hear the giants squawking and shouting all over the mountains. This won't do it all, said Thorn. If we don't get blown off or drowned or struck by lightning, we shall be picked up by some giant and kicked sky high for a football. Well, if you know anywhere better, take us there, said Gandalf, who was feeling very grumpy and was far from happy about the giants himself. The end of their argument was that they sent Fili and Kili to look for a better shelter. They had very sharp eyes, and being the youngest of the dwarves by some 50 years, they usually got these sorts of jobs when everybody could see that it was absolutely no use sending Bilbo. There is nothing like looking if you want to find something, or so Thorin said to the young dwarves. You certainly usually find something if you look, but it is not always quite the something you were after, so it proved. And so it proved on this occasion. Soon Fili and Kili came crawling back, holding onto the rocks in the wind. We found a dry cave, they said, not far around the next corner, and ponies and all could get inside. Have you thoroughly explored it, said the wizard, who knew that caves up in the mountains were seldom unoccupied. Yes, they said, though everybody knew that they could not have been long about it. They had come back too quick. It isn't all that big, and it does not go far back. That, of course, is the dangerous part about caves. You don't know how far they go back, sometimes, or where a passage behind may lead to, or what is waiting for you inside. But now Fili and Kili's news seemed good enough, so they all got up and prepared to move. The wind was howling and the thunder still growling, and they had a business getting themselves and their ponies along. Still, it was not very far to go, and before long they came to a big rock standing out into the path. If you stepped behind it, you found a low arch in the side of the mountain. There was just room to get the ponies through with a squeeze. When they had been unpacked and unsaddled, as they passed under the arch, it was good to hear the wind and the rain outside instead of all of them about, and to feel safe from the giants and their rocks. But the wizard was taking no risks. He lit up his wand as he did that day in Bilbo's dining room that seemed so long ago, if you remember, and by its light they explored the cave from end to end. It seemed quite a fair size, but not too large and mysterious. It had a dry floor and some comfortable nooks. At one end there was room for the ponies, and there they stood, mighty glad for the change, steaming and champing in their nose bags. Oin and Gloin wanted to light a fire at the door to dry their clothes, but Gandalf would not hear of it, so they spread out their wet things on the floor and got dry ones out of their bundles. And then they made blankets comfortable and got out their pipes and blew smoke rings, which Gandalf turned into different colors and set dancing up by the roof to amuse them. They talked and forgot about the storm and discussed what each would do with his share of the treasure when they got it, which at this moment did not seem so impossible. And so they dropped off to sleep one by one, and that was the last time they used the ponies, packages, baggages, tools, and paraphernalia that they had brought with them. It turned out a good thing that night that they had brought little Bilbo with them after all, for somehow he could not go to sleep for a long while. And when he did sleep, he had very nasty dreams. He dreamed that a crack in the wall at the back of the cave got bigger and bigger and opened wider and wider, and he was very afraid but could not call out or do anything but lie and look. And then he dreamed that the floor of the cave was given way, and he was slipping, beginning to fall down, goodness knows where to. At that, he woke up and with a horrible start and found that part of his dream was true. A crack had opened at the back of the cave and was already a wide passage. It was just in time to see the last of the ponies' tails disappearing into it. Of course, he gave a very loud yell, as loud a yell as a hobbit can give, which is surprising for their size. Out jumped the goblins, big goblins, Great ugly looking goblins, lots of goblins, before you could say rocks and blocks. There were 6 to each dwarf at least, and 2 even for Bilbo, and they were all grabbed and carried through the crack before you could say tinder and flint, but not Gandalf. Bilbo's yell had done that much good. It had wakened him up wide in a splintered second, and when the goblins came to grab him, there was a terrific flash like lightning in the cave, a smell like gunpowder, and several of them fell dead. The crack closed with a snap, and Bilbo and the dwarves were on the wrong side of it. Where was Gandalf? Of that, neither they nor the goblins had any idea, and the goblins did not wait to find out. They seized Bilbo and the dwarves and hurried them along. It was deep, deep dark, such as only goblins that have taken to living in the heart of mountains can see through. The passages there were crossed and tangled in all directions, but the goblins knew their way, as well as you do, to the nearest post office. And the way went down, and it was most horribly stuffy. The goblins were very rough and pinched unmercifully and chuckled and laughed in their horrible stony voices. And Bilbo was more unhappy even than when the troll had picked him up by his toes. He wished again and again for his nice bright hobbit hole, and not for the last time. Now there came a glimmer of red light before them. The goblins began to sing or croak, keeping time with the flap of their feet on the stone and shaking their prisoners as well. It's time for Tom to sing again. Here we go. All right. Here we go. What kind of chord should I play? I don't even know. Clap, snap, black, crack, grip, grab, pinch. Down the goblin town you go, my lad. Clash, crash, crush, smash, hammer and tongs, knocker and gongs. Pound far, far underground, ho, ho, my lad. Swish, smack, whip, crack, batter and beat, yammer and bleat. Work, not dare to shirk, while goblins quaff and goblins laugh. Round, round, far underground, below my lad. Did they keep going? Oh. I was just starting to get into it. Okay. Here we go. Where was I? Okay. It sounded truly terrifying. Yeah, it did. I didn't sound very good when I sang it, did I? The walls echoed to the clap, snap, and the crush, smash, and the ugly laughter of the ho-ho, my lad. The general meaning of the song was only too plain, for now the goblins took out whips and whipped them with a swish and a smack, and set them running as fast as they could in front of them. And more than one of the dwarves were already yammering and bleeding like anything when they stumbled into a big cavern. It was lit by a great red fire in the middle and by torches along the wall, and it was full of goblins. They all laughed and stamped and clapped their hands when the dwarves, with poor little Bilbo at the back and nearest to the whips, came running in, while the goblin drivers whooped and cracked their whips behind. The ponies were already there, huddled in a corner, and there were all the baggages and packages lying broken open and being rummaged by goblins and smelt by goblins and fingered by goblins and quarreled over by goblins. This has got a really cool double-page picture. Nice. Look at that. That's pretty cool. I'm afraid that was the last they ever saw of those excellent little ponies, including a jolly, sturdy little white fellow that Elrond had lent to Gandalf, since his horse was not suitable for mountain paths. For goblins eat horses and ponies and donkeys and other much more dreadful things, and they are always hungry. Just now, however, the prisoners were thinking only of themselves. The goblins chained their hands behind their back and linked them all together in a line and dragged them to the far end of the cavern, with little Bilbo tugging at the end of the row. There in the shadows on a large flat stone sat a tremendous goblin with a huge head, and armed goblins were standing round him carrying the axes and the bent swords that they used. Now goblins are cruel, wicked, and bad-hearted. They make no beautiful things, but they make many clever ones. They can tunnel and mine as well as any but the most skilled dwarves, and when they take the trouble, though, they are usually untidy and dirty. Hammers, axes, swords, daggers, pickaxes, tongs, and also instruments of torture they make very well or get other people to make to their design, prisoners and slaves that have to work till they die for want of air and light. It is not unlikely that they invented some of the machines that have since troubled the world, especially the ingenious devices for killing large number of people at once, for wheels and engines and explosions always delighted them, and also not working with their own hands more than they could help. But in those days and in those wild parts, they had not advanced, as it is called, so far. They did not hate dwarves especially, no more than they hated everybody and everything, and particularly the orderly and prosperous. In some parts, wicked dwarves had even made alliances with them, but they had a special grudge against Thorin's people because of the war which you have heard mentioned, but which does not come into this tale. And anyways, goblins don't care who they catch, as long as it is done smart and secret, and the prisoners are not able to defend themselves. Okay, we'll read some more on Monday. Bye, guys.